Superman gives up his powers in the Fortress of Solitude, but watch closely and Clark Kent's hairline shifts between shots. Christopher Reeve's appearance changes noticeably because it was shot twice by two different directors. These are the 20 hidden details in Superman 2 you completely missed. Number 20. Superman 2 looked like a seamless sequel, but the production was actually a battlefield between two creative visions. Director Richard Donner was fired in December 1979 after battles with producers Alexander and Ilya Salkind over budget overruns at Pinewood Studios. They brought in Richard Lester in January 1980 to reshoot most of Donner's footage with a lighter tone. According to the DVD commentary featuring producer Pierre Spengler, Lester needed to reshoot at least 51% to earn sole director credit. The studio demanded this percentage to avoid sharing creative credit legally. Watch Lois Lane's hairstyle throughout the film and spot jarring continuity breaks where Margot Kidder's darker shoulder-length cut suddenly becomes Lester's feathered style mid-conversation at the Fortress of Solitude scenes. Number 19. Jor-El's presence feels strangely absent because Marlon Brando negotiated a percentage of gross profits for Superman, the movie, and the Salkinds faced, paying him over $4 million in back-end fees. Their solution was replacing every frame of Brando with Susannah York's Lara. Production designer John Barry confirmed in British Film Institute interviews that the Salkinds ordered editors to delete Brando entirely. Watch the Fortress scenes and notice awkward ADR dubbing over York's mouth as she delivers lines written for Jor-El's deeper voice. The replacement dialogue never quite matched the original scene's emotional weight. Legal filings from 1980 show Brando sued Warner Brothers, but the case settled quietly before Richard Lester completed post-production at Pinewood Studios in England. Number 18. Lex Luthor seems subdued because Gene Hackman literally refused to participate in Richard Lester's reshoots at Pinewood Studios. After witnessing how the Salkinds fired Donner and removed Brando, Hackman told producers he wouldn't return. According to crew accounts and interviews with assistant director David Tomblin, every shot of Lex in the theatrical cut comes from Donner's original 1977 to 78 filming. Lester used body doubles for new scenes shot years after production ended. Hackman's solidarity with Donner cost the film its villain's full presence. Watch the Paris Eiffel Tower sequence and notice how wide shots never show Lex's face clearly. When Lex delivers close-up lines, those are Donner's shots from 3 years earlier, filmed at Shepperton Studios before the production shut down in 1978. Number 17. Lois Lane's screen time dramatically shrinks in Superman 3 because Margot Kidder publicly defended Richard Donner after his firing. She gave interviews to Entertainment Weekly in 1983, calling the Salkinds disgusting for destroying Donner's vision. The punishment was swift when producers Ilya and Alexander Salkind slashed her Superman 3 role to a brief cameo. According to Kidder's interviews with film historians, the Salkinds blacklisted her from other Warner Brothers projects they controlled. Her loyalty to Donner cost her the franchise she helped build. Compare Lois's prominence across the 3 films and watch her disappear from the franchise. This was 1980s Hollywood at its most vindictive, where actors face career consequences for supporting fired directors like Donner. Number 16. Superman reverses time with a kiss to erase Lois's memory, but that ending was stolen from another movie. Richard Donner filmed that time reversal as the original Superman. The movie climaxed in 1978, where Superman would reverse Earth's rotation at the Hoover Dam. The Salkinds forced him to use the dam explosion as the first film's ending instead. When Lester couldn't devise a better conclusion, he took Donner's unused footage filmed by cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth. According to editor Stuart Baird's commentary, Lester shot new kiss footage but kept Donner's expensive time reversal effects. The recycled ending saved the production over $500,000. Watch how special effects quality drops dramatically during the ending as visual styles shift between directors. Number 15. Terrence Stamp's General Zod became legendary, but he was cast in 1977 and waited 3 years to finish the role. Stamp, Jack O'Halloran as Non, and Sarah Douglas as Ursa filmed Phantom Zone sequences during the original 1977-78 production at Pinewood Studios when both Superman films were shot simultaneously. Then the Salkinds shut down production indefinitely due to budget concerns. O'Halloran suffered a shoulder injury during the 1978 hiatus and rehabilitated for months before Lester's 1980 reshoots. Douglas told film journalist Tom Mankiewicz she maintained her character without knowing the final script. The actors remained under contract during the entire 3-year gap. Watch for costume continuity breaks between 1977 Phantom Zone footage and 1980 Earth invasion scenes at Niagara Falls and Metropolis. Number 14. The romantic Niagara Falls honeymoon sequence was a reckless nightmare because Richard Lester's crew shot during peak tourist season without proper permits. Cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth's production notes reveal crew members disguised as tourists, hiding cameras and luggage around actual vacationers. Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder performed romantic scenes while tourists gawked, and during one stunt at the fall's edge, both actors nearly got swept over when a safety cable snapped. The production didn't report the incident to insurance companies because they feared shutdown. Local authorities never discovered the guerrilla filming techniques being used illegally. Watch the backgrounds closely and spot tourists staring directly at the camera. One wide shot shows a family pointing at Reeve in his Superman costume during filming. Number 13. Superman's flight scenes look smooth, but Christopher Reeve was injured on wire rigging twice during Lester's reshoots at Pinewood Studios. Stunt coordinator Paul Weston confirmed in interviews with film historian Lee Pfeiffer that during the Metropolis battle sequence, one of Reeve's support wires snapped and sent him crashing into a lighting rig, bruising his ribs. The insurance company threatened to shut down production unless safety protocols improved. Warner Brothers and the Salkinds quietly settled and kept the story from the press until the 1990s. The accident could have ended Reeve's career before it truly began. Watch for sudden, jarring cuts during Metropolis flight battle scenes, covering moments when Reeve's wire rig malfunctioned or he looked visibly in pain. Number 12. General Zod's Oval Office takeover is iconic, but the production had no permission from the US government to depict the president. Production designer Peter Merton admitted in interviews with American Cinematographer magazine that the entire Oval Office set was built from stolen photographs and TV news footage because the Carter administration refused cooperation. When the White House discovered the unauthorized depiction, they sent legal threats to Warner Brothers, but the studio quietly settled at Pinewood Studios. The settlement prevented any legal action from derailing the film's release. Watch presidential scenes and notice the generic presidential seal and vague lack of specific details. No flags, no portraits, no identifiable security features because the production knew they were on legally shaky ground before filming. Number 11. Christopher Reeve's costume looks identical, but he wore 3 completely different suits because the original was rotting. Costume designer Yvonne Blake revealed to Cinefix magazine that the 1977 suit made from wool and spandex had deteriorated during the 3-year production gap due to improper storage at Pinewood Studios in England's humid climate. By the time Lester's reshoots began in 1980, the fabric had developed mold. Blake's team created 2 new suits using polyester blends that photographed differently under cinematographer Robert Painter's lights. The material changes created unintended continuity errors throughout the final cut. Watch Superman's chest emblem closely and notice the size and color saturation shift between scenes filmed by Donner and Lester across different years. Number 10. Superman 2 feels tonally inconsistent because it contains 2 different movies stitched together. Richard Donner shot tragic romance with Shakespearean Wade at Pinewood Studios, while Richard Lester reshot scenes with slapstick comedy and cartoonish sound effects. The Salkinds wanted a lighter film after Superman. The movie's perceived darkness, so Lester added comedic beats. According to the 2006 Donner Cut comparison featuring editor Michael Thau, identical scenes transformed from serious drama into broad comedy by changing music and editing rhythm. Listen during the Metropolis battle for cartoony crash sounds Lester inserted. The tonal shift alienated fans who preferred Donner's serious approach completely. Watch the diner fight and see Christopher Reeve's expressions shift between vulnerability and forced goofiness depending on which director shot it. Number 9. Christopher Reeve appears committed, but he was in open rebellion against Richard Lester's creative choices at Pinewood Studios. According to Reeve's autobiography, Still Me, and assistant director David Tomblin's testimony, he refused to film the diner bully fight as written because he thought it undermined Clark Kent's character. Lester scripted broad physical comedy, but Reeve argued it contradicted the emotional stakes. The compromise was tense when Reeve agreed to film Lester's version, but improvised a more serious take showing genuine pain. His performance captured both vulnerability and frustration in equal uncomfortable measure. Watch Reeve's facial expressions during that scene closely and see genuine frustration, especially when the bully shoves him at the Metropolis diner location. Number 8. General Zod shoots heat vision from his fingers during the Metropolis battle, but that power had never been established in Superman mythology. Superman's heat vision comes from his eyes, as shown in the first film by Richard Donner. According to letters sent to DC Comics editor Julius Schwartz and complaints from comic book consultant Tom Mankiewicz, the script supervisor missed the error entirely at Pinewood Studios, and Lester didn't care about continuity. By the time editors realized the mistake during post-production, reshoots would have been too expensive. The finger beams became accidental canon that contradicted decades of stories. Watch and compare Superman's eye beams with Zod's hand beams under cinematographer Robert Painter's lighting, creating inconsistency that contradicts 40 years of Superman stories. Number 7. The elaborate United Nation's siege with dozens of extras was filmed in one continuous shot because the production couldn't afford reshoots. The Salkinds were already $2 million over budget, threatening shutdown, and editor John Victor Smith had to work with existing footage. According to Victor Smith's interviews with American Cinema Editors magazine, during the single take at Pinewood Studios, the camera operator stumbled and fell mid-shot, creating shaky footage. Watch the UN sequence and notice camera wobble and sudden pan recovering from the operator's fall. The mistake remained visible in every theatrical print released worldwide ultimately. Extras look genuinely confused rather than terrified because nobody had time to rehearse under production manager Bob Lynn's rushed schedule. Number 6. The gritty subway fight features bystanders with unsettlingly real reactions because many weren't actors. The production hired actual homeless New Yorkers as extras, paying them $25 each with no Screen Actors Guild protections. According to a brief expose in the New York Times in 1981, labor activists discovered the practice during filming at the 42nd Street subway station. Watch background faces during the subway sequence and notice genuine confusion and fear, not theatrical reactions from trained performers. The exploitation became a minor scandal within Hollywood labor unions temporarily. The Salkinds defended the practice, claiming they provided employment, but critics like labor organizer Frank Barbaro pointed out the lack of proper compensation violated industry standards before the film's release. Number 5. The epic Metropolis battle looks devastating because the production destroyed a full-scale city block set worth over $500,000. The Salkinds couldn't afford to preserve the elaborate Metropolis street set, so they demolished it during filming. Production budget breakdowns and permits from Buckinghamshire County Council confirm it was a cost-saving measure by producer Pierre Spengler. Most building collapses and car crashes were captured in single takes with no reshoots. Watch for genuine panic among stunt performers as real structures collapse around them under stunt coordinator Paul Weston's coordination, creating hazards that modern safety regulations would never allow before cinematographer Robert Painter's cameras. The destruction footage became some of the film's most memorable sequences. Number 4. Superman's power loss feels abrupt because Richard Lester deleted over 20 minutes of Fortress dialogue explaining the sacrifice. Richard Donner had filmed an extended sequence where Marlon Brando's Jor-El warned Clark of irreversible consequences, creating an emotional farewell. According to the 2006 Donner cut restoration by editor Michael Thau and the original screenplay by Tom Mankiewicz, this sequence was the emotional anchor. Lester cut it all to eliminate Brando and save the Salkinds $4 million in back-end payments. What replaced it was Susannah York's Lara offering vague explanations at the Fortress of Solitude. The emotional core disappeared entirely from the theatrical version released worldwide. Watch the tonal shift and notice how abruptly the film jumps from decision to consequence. Number 3. The 1980 theatrical version feels choppy because the final edit wasn't locked before theaters received prints. Different countries got different cuts, with alternate takes filmed by Richard Lester. The UK version includes an extended Eiffel Tower opening that the US version cuts entirely, according to British Film Institute archives. The Salkinds rushed release to meet a tax deadline that would have cost millions in British film subsidies under producer Pierre Spengler's coordination. Editors were literally finishing scenes while prints were struck for distribution at Rank Film Laboratories. International audiences essentially watched completely different versions of the same movie. Watch different home video releases and find different shots in identical scenes, proving multiple versions existed simultaneously across international markets. Number 2. Christopher Reeve returned for Superman 3 and 4, but his 1977 contract legally bound him to 4 Superman films. When he tried exiting after Richard Donner's firing, the Salkinds threatened to sue for breach of contract according to Reeve's legal documents and agent interviews with Kay Leibowitz. He was trapped in a franchise he'd grown to hate, forced to complete contractual obligations despite despising the creative direction under Richard Lester and Sidney J. Furie. Financial desperation also played a role when Reeve needed money after his divorce. His declining enthusiasm became increasingly visible with each subsequent Superman sequel. Watch his performance across 4 films and see enthusiasm visibly decline by Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Number 1. When ABC broadcast Superman 2 in 1984, they added new footage that shocked Richard Donner. The network inserted deleted scenes from Donner's original cut without permission, creating a hybrid version neither director approved. According to Donner's interviews with film historian Laurent Bouzereau after the 2006 restoration, he saw his lost footage for the first time on network television. A BC's version included Marlon Brando scenes and different dialogue that contradicted the theatrical cut. Television bootlegs show radically different story beats, including Jor-El's warnings. The unauthorized edit created confusion among fans watching the broadcast nationwide. The network accessed raw footage from Warner Brothers archives and assembled their own cut to fill a 3-hour time slot without consulting Donner or Richard Lester. Superman 2 contains 2 complete movies stitched into one release, with 45% Donner footage and 55% Lester footage creating a Frankenstein film. The 2006 Donner cut finally revealed the superior original vision that the Salkinds destroyed. Which hidden detail surprised you most, and what film should we expose next?